Hello! This is Hooked by Happenstance. I'm Kendra, and it is time for chapter 35 of Yarn Tales. Yarn Tales is my ongoing series here at Hooked by Happenstance where I read books, I tell you a bit about them, and then I apply silly Kendra rules to my star rating for the book, and I add to my reading Shawl, which is an ongoing project to make a tangible product from intangible reading, which is encouraging me to stick with reading more and helping me to read a variety of things. So, today, we're outside edition, so I'm sure you hear birds and things, but I don't think it's too windy. And it is certainly quieter out here than it is inside of my house on our first day post-vacation. So, the book we're going to talk about today is one that I read in March during Fantasy-a-thon. Fantasy-a-thon was a readathon that encouraged you to read a number of fantasy books in a 10-day period. The book that we're going to talk about today is called Dragon Breath by Ursula Vernon, and I used it to reach a couple of the challenges for Fantasy-a-thon. It met the challenge to start a series. This is a series of books. This is the first one. It is a graphic novel with words interspersed. I'll talk about that in a second. But I definitely intend to continue with the series. Secondly, it met the challenge to read a fantasy in a genre or format you don't normally read. Well, I kind of read a little bit of everything at this point as far as, like, book types. Like, I know there are people that were doing audiobooks because they always read physical books. Or people were really reading middle grade because that seems to be an uncommon book type for other people to choose. However, since I have children who span between 5 and 10, and I read a lot of books with them, I read a lot of middle grade, but I also read YA and adult. So, I mean, I kind of cover my bases, and we are also big fans of picture books. So I really do frequent every section of the library. It's not like there's a, a huge portion or types of books that I don't read. However, I would like to read more graphic novels, but I'm not into manga. It doesn't appeal to me. I have tried. But I was looking at other things. So I picked this book, which was like a mashup of graphic novel and text in like a middle grade level, and I think that's a good, it showed me a new kind of book I had not really been into reading that I think I would enjoy. And the final challenge that it met was to immerse yourself in the novel with a pampering you time block of reading time. I spent a morning in my office alone, and I read this book all in one sitting. It's like 150 some pages. I sat there kind of like this with a cup of chai and just absorbed this lovely book, and it was a nice morning. And I kind of just decided that I was gonna read this book and spend time doing the thing I wanted to do, and that was just what was gonna happen, and it did, and it was delightful. So it definitely met that challenge. So, Dragon Breath is the first book in a series by Ursula Vernon about a dragon, a little kid dragon who is learning to breathe fire, and it's kind of his adventures with his friend. This one, they end up going to the ocean because of a science project that's due, and I really thought there was a good balance of text to graphic novel, and it went seamlessly. Previously, when I've experienced books that have like a cartoon drawn component and then a heavy prose component, there's like a big disconnect as it switches from section to section, or it would be like alternating, like here's a chapter in prose, here's a chapter in pictures, and it would go back and forth. But this one just seamlessly blended from one to the next, which made it a really positive experience, and I really liked the drawing style. It was simple in the fact that the artist used care in editing the way that they drew things. Not simple like these were easy, but simple in that there wasn't a lot of stuff that didn't need to be there. The color and shading was really good. It was 3-color. I think it was all black, white, and then like a greenish. There might have been one other color in there. But anyways, the use of like color scaling was really well done and pleasing to my eye. And I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series. I think there's 6 books, and I think my library has at least 4 of them. So we will have to look into getting whatever the library doesn't have. After I read this book, my intent was that I would read it and that maybe my 10-year-old would read it after if I liked it or thought it was worthwhile. And you know, I told her how much I enjoyed it, so she immediately read it, and then my 6-year-old read it, and my 5-year-old even looked through it and was, you know, finding words and stuff. And so it turned out that everybody ended up enjoying this book, which I had originally got with the intent for just me, which I love to find books that we can all enjoy when I'm not expecting it. Like, I love those little surprises that pop out, and that's one of my favorite things about going to the library, is the fact that I just kind of walk the shelves and I pick randomly, and yes, I pick a lot of duds. I mean, when you pick that way, the chances that you'll pick something you don't like are just as likely as picking something you do. But then I pick these gems that just are good for our whole family, and that's always really fun, and I think I found a new series that we'll all really enjoy. I also probably would not have looking into this sort of book or trying to go outside of my comfort zone had I not been doing a readathon that had some challenges and some goals that I needed to meet, which is one of the cool things about readathons, is that they give me a little push to experience things that are outside of what I might normally pick up, and they help me to kind of diversify my reading choices and then find new favorite things that I want to look into more. Like, I have definitely found graphic novels to be more appealing to me since I've been doing readathons. I just need to look into other options, because I don't necessarily like all of the graphic novel choices that my library has been getting in, so I need to see what I can request on interlibrary loan, or what I'm interested in just buying outright, to give me some more options. But I know that lots of you are just here to see the shawl, so let's do that. Now, you know, since this was for a readathon, we got to add some beads, which turned out to be a little more problematic than I had hoped. So this is the third shawl that I have made in this whole Yarn Tales experience this year. I made a purple one that was DK weight yarns that had been gifted to me that I piecemealed together. And then I purchased yarns to make a blue shawl, and those were all fingering weight. And now this one I purchased all the yarns for, and I purchased DK weights because the variegated color that I chose as my green, even though it is green and orange and browns and like it's variegated, it was the color that most appealed to me when I was going through the different dyers that I wanted to choose from. Well, it was in DK. So I decided I would just do this green shawl in DK weight, in addition to giving me color options when these shawls are all done, to also give me different weights. Well, the problem with DK weight yarn is beads. Most of the beads, and I was trying to use beads that I have because it's just, I have a lot of beads because I've done different beading and beading for sale endeavors that, yeah, I have a lot of beads. In addition to all the other things that I have crafty stashed, beads is one of them. And so I wanted to try and use up some things that I had on hand, because I have a lot of beautiful beads that I just have not yet found the uses for. And I was hoping that this shawl could use up a bunch of them. However, the inner hole on the beads is too small to pull DK weight yarn through, and I was splitting the yarn, and I was having some issues. I did find that I have a few beads that do work with this yarn, so I'm just really gonna have to work within those bead families. I think I have enough to get me through, but we'll see. It might mean that further on I have to get creative, because I am also determined to add beads to these readathon segments, and I read a decent amount for this readathon. So here we have our segment. It is made out of some Low Did It yarn on the Simple DK, I believe, in the color Tea on the Green, which is this nice, like, it's a cross between like a sage and kind of a mossy green, and then it has all these little blips of gold in it, so I thought it was appropriate. I used these gold, they're not seed beads, but just gold beads, and I don't even know what size they are because the tubes they came in were unlabeled. I've had them for over a decade. But I just went ahead and I put a bead, since there's these little cluster stitches, I put a bead in the center stitch of every other cluster to kind of spread them out, and I'm really liking the way that it looks. I gave this book 4 stars because I really enjoyed the experience. It was not a perfect book, but it was a really, really good book, and it made me want to read more books from the series and to tell other people. I would definitely suggest this to a certain audience, that this would be a good book to read. If you have children who are of like the early and middle grade levels of reading, I would definitely recommend this book. And if you're just looking for something kind of cute and fun for your brain to chew on, that's just kind of silly, but also, I mean, has some good information in it, then I would recommend that to you too. It is noon. Can you hear the noon whistle? Goes on for a long time sometimes. That is the whistle uptown, about 3 miles away from my house. In town, they sound the like tornado whistle every day at noon, and sometimes the wind is coming the right way. We can hear it here on the farm. So, anyways, as I was saying, back to the shawl, I ended up with a nice thick stripe of the tea on the green, which I think is really offsetting the audiobooks that I read in here, which used the cattails yarn in the waist color. And I'm also enjoying how I did the bead choices are different. There's a few of these gold colored beads in this section, but not a ton. And so it's tying everything together, and I'm so excited. And this shawl is so smooshy. I can't even with how smooshy these yarns are working up. So I'm really looking forward to getting some more work put into it and seeing what becomes of it. If you would like to see the rest of the chapters of Yarn Tales, there is a playlist here on the channel, and if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the future chapters, subscribe down below because I do not post on a regulated schedule, so the best way to make sure that you don't miss an upload is to subscribe. And I will see you all next time. Bye!